Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Pete, Films and Stuff, Saturday morning, new episode. It's time for Stream or Skip. How are you today?
I am great, Ethan. How are you?
I'm great. And you know what? The past few weeks, when we've been assigning each other the shows to watch for Stream or Skip, we've usually not been on the same page. Either I've gotten something exceptional and you've got a skip, or I've gotten a skip and you've got something pretty decent. This week, we're on the same page, right?
We're absolutely on the same page this week.
And we both had something on HBO.
That's right. It was interesting. I think it's also because of the way our list was made. So again, for the listener's sake, Ethan has made a list of shows he wants me to watch. I have made a list of shows I want Ethan to watch. We randomly assign each other a show to watch for the coming week. And then we watch at least 2 episodes. And then we decide, hey, is this a show that we should continue watching? Or is this a show that we should just skip?
It's really public service for our listeners so that you don't have to go out and waste a lot of time on shows or you're not sure if it's worth watching or not. We'll do all that dirty work for you. But this week, no dirty work. No dirty work this week.
Exactly.
All right. You want to go first? I know that you're bouncing about what you've got. Tell me.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I watched Industry on HBO Max.
All right. Tell me.
I had never heard of this show. I didn't know anything about it. But let me set the scene for you. Think drama set in high finance. Think of this as the depiction of banking that's very stylized. So what Suits did for a law firm, Industry kind of does for investment banking.
All right.
Okay. And what I'd like you to do is think of Industry like this. Take 30% Suits, 30% Game of Thrones, 30% Billions, a sprinkle, maybe 10% of Succession.
Whoa.
And you've got Industry.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So let me be clear. The premise is very simple.
Yeah.
The first series follows a group of 5 first-year analysts/associates at an investment bank. The investment bank is based in London. Of course, they have a New York branch, London branch, et cetera, et cetera. But we're looking in the London branch.
Okay.
And it follows through on the story of these analysts, right, or these associates, as they kind of make their way through the first year of working at an investment bank. And, so some people are part of the FX team. Some people are part of the investor relations team or the mergers and acquisitions team. Some people are part of, the sales team, that sort of thing. It is a very cliched look of high finance and trading floors. You can think a little bit of The Boiler Room or Wall Street or any kind of like late 80s, early 90s era quote unquote finance movie. So you get to see a lot of hazing. You see a lot of bullying of traders, stuff that would definitely not be tolerated in today's environment. Right. And you see that it's not a spoiler because you can see he doesn't come back. One of the analysts that they've hired at this bank he dies because he's overworked in his first year. Yeah, exactly. So it's obviously things that would not normally happen in real world finance, in real world banking any longer. Things that probably happened in the past, but not any longer. It's also a little overly stylized and a little overly glossy in the sense that, how we used to joke in Suits, like Mike or whoever would pull out a 1-page document from his jacket pocket.
Everything's in an envelope.
Exactly, right? And he stayed up 12 hours and produced a 1-page envelope that basically killed the lawsuit or basically supported the lawsuit, which is so unheard of. It's just absolutely a joke. And this case, it's kind of similar. You see one of those fancy investors playing tennis who picks up the phone and makes a $3 billion trade on a whim over the phone through an analyst that he's never met before at a bank that he doesn't work with. You know what I mean? Like that would never happen. But of course, in
Drama.
a show like this, of course, that you want it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a little bit of a, if you've watched Billions, it's a little bit like that in the sense that you get to see the finance side, but it's a little bit more mature. So the show doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't tell you, oh, well, this is what an option is. This is what a futures is. This is what the trade involves, or shorting. It doesn't tell you any of that. It trusts the viewer that you'll to either understand it or to say, you know what? I'm smart enough to understand that even though I don't know what they're talking about, that's probably not what the crux of this transaction is about. So you don't really need to worry about how options work in that sense.
Okay.
It's really about the vibe and the feeling of each interaction, which is really ultimately important. And I have to say, overall, the show gives you, at times, a very realistic view of what the investment banking firm process is like, and sometimes a very unrealistic view. So in terms of the realism, they go through the interview process. And they go through, you know, what it's like to actually work on the floor and what politics is like. All the kinds of things that you and I probably saw, you know, as soon as we got out of university in the late 90s, early 2000s, and all the horror stories we heard about, they're in here. But it's also at times highly inaccurate, which is to say, like, everybody is sleeping with everybody else. There's a lot of drug taking out in the open, things like that. You know, it's, again, harkens back to what people thought of bankers in the 80s, you know, that really high-flying lifestyle. And I'm not saying that's not the case now. It might be, but it's certainly nowhere near as open as it is here. I have to say there's a lot of nudity and there's a lot of sex, and it's explicit. Think Game of Thrones first season and push it to 11. It's even
Whoa.
Yeah. It's not vulgar in the sense that they're not showing you sex on screen for the sake of showing sex on screen, but the nudity and thing, it's jarring if you're not prepared for it. I wasn't prepared for it, and it took me aside. But once you get over it, you're just like, okay, that's fine. I mean, I don't know how realistic some of those things are that you get to see, but they're there. It's fine. I watched the first 2 episodes, and then 3 days later, I was done with the first series.
Whoa.
5 days later, I was done with the second
No way.
series. I have caught up on all of industry. So I have finished all 16 episodes.
A must subscribe, it sounds
like. It is a must subscribe. It is really good.
Wow.
I would just say this. As unrealistic as Suits was for us as fans of like the legal dramas, that's how this kind of is for finance. But because it's also finance, I'm a little bit more vested.
Suits has at least one iconic character in Harvey. Does industry have like an equally iconic person?
So they kind of do. The main actor, the one you see, she's actually an American who comes to London to work at this bank. She doesn't want to work in the US branch. There's elements to Suits that I don't want to show. I don't want to tell you because I want you to watch it. And I don't want to spoil them to you.
Okay.
And then there's definitely a Harvey-like character. There is a Harvey Specter-like, who's not the all-star, but he's kind of like the mentor of the main character.
Okay. Wow. Well, I think
highly recommended.
I think that redeems me from the past 2 weeks where I've given you like some foreign language stuff and some animated stuff. This one, it sounds like absolutely it's a must subscribe. So that's very, very great news to hear.
Yeah. And not just a must subscribe. I actually think that there are elements in it that I think you would also very much enjoy. So I highly recommend, not just our listeners, but I actually think you should watch it as well.
I'm in. With a recommendation like that, I'm absolutely in. So that is Industry on HBO Max. One more question before we turn to me.
Okay.
Is there any actor that we know?
Not really.
Oh.
Not really. Because a lot of the cast is British and a lot of the cast is very young. Okay. So they're probably recognizable to British television viewers. Yeah. I doubt they would be. The mentor figure is also American. His name is Ken Lung, I think. I have seen him in other things, but if you ask me what's his most prominent role, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay.
I think he's in Star Wars, but not such a prominent figure that we'd be like, I remember that guy.
Got it. Okay, that's industry must subscribe on HBO Max. And sticking with HBO Max, Pete has assigned me to watch The Tourist, which is a 2002 series. Let me just set the scene going into this. The cover art, and I've harped on this so many times, the cover art looks kind of miserable. It's very brown. The guy is, when you think of tourist, you think of someone maybe in a Hawaiian shirt and like colorful sunglasses and a hat. This guy he's very dirty. He's got like a brown t-shirt on. His hair he doesn't look like a normal tourist. So I saw the cover art, and I have to say, my expectations were not high. I also rate this as a must subscribe, and I will tell you why. First,
Ooh, okay.
It stars Jamie Dornan. Do you know who this is? 50 Shades of Grey. Unrecognizable, for sure. Then there's another lady in there, Danielle McDonald, who you may remember from the movie Patty Cakes or the movie Dumplin', which starred Jennifer Aniston. So I recognize kind of both of the main characters, and it's super cool. Let me tell you, first of all, where it's based. It's based in the outback of Australia. First of all, from a production standpoint, it must have been cheap as chips to make. Everything is wide open, kind of like that barren outback space. Everything is like old little trailer homes. Like it's not like what you described for industry. There's no Swish office space. There's no Malibu mansion. It's really, really, they're in cheap, battered up cars. They're in like little trailer mobile homes. They're in raunchy little hotels. So that's kind of why the cover art is reflected like that. It's definitely not, it's filmed very well. The cinematography is great, but it's definitely not like with these breathtaking, kind of like visual scenes and stuff like that. The premise of the show is that we see this guy and he's kind of like trying to escape from something, and he gets into a car accident. He wakes up in the hospital and he has full-blown amnesia. Doesn't know his name, doesn't know where he's from, doesn't know any single thing, doesn't even know what he likes to eat, doesn't know what the Spice Girls are, for example, does not know anything, but he can speak English fine. Like, he doesn't have any like speech impediments or communication problems. He can kind of figure out how to drive a car. But like when they say like, hey, do you like Mexican food? He's like, I don't even know what that is. He's got nothing on his person. So the medical, the doctors and nurses don't know who he is. He can't even tell them his name. They just know that he was found kind of on the side of the road in a car that rolled over. No phone, no wallet, no information that gives any clue as to who he is, where he's from, or like where he belongs, right? And he slowly, it's very clever, and it's what really got me hooked. He slowly starts to kind of piece things together. If you remember the old Memento movie,
yeah,
very slowly does he, in a very clever way, start to kind of work backwards and say, okay, like, where was my car found? And what direction was I going? Well, I couldn't have been going here. I must have been going there. What's there? Must be this. He starts to very slowly kind of piece things together. It snowballs a little bit. And after 4 episodes, we don't know who he is, but we know that he's got some type of, it's not clear if he's a good or a bad guy. We think he's a good guy, but he's obviously mixed up somehow in the wrong crowd. And now there seem to be like at least 3 different groups, can I call them, that want to find him. And it's not clear, again, who wants to find him to like save him and protect him, who wants to find him to like take him out or get information from him. But it's kind of dynamic right now, and I have to say, it's really, really good.
How many episodes is this series?
I think it's 10 for season 1, and I think there's only a season 1 right now because it just came out in March. I got through 4, and I was, again, like after the first episode, I was absolutely in. Like after the first episode, there was no question I was going to be in, but I love the entire thing. I really, really love the entire thing. I have nothing but good things to say about it. For me, it's a must subscribe.
Oh, well, that means it's on my watch list immediately.
Yeah.
And you know I'm a big fan of mysteries, so this could be good.
Yeah. If you kind of like those mysteries where you've got to put things together, there was a point, I was wrong about it, but there was a point where I thought like all of this was kind of like a big flashback or a flash forward, and I was wrong about that. But it goes to show that like it kind of keeps me guessing the entire time. Little pieces, revealed. And I have to say, Jamie Dornan, who I thought was a pretty stiff actor in 50 Shades of Grey, I really, really was impressed by him in this movie. Like he absolutely doesn't look really the same. And he plays this role of basically a dude who doesn't know who he is at all very, very well.
Okay, well, you had me at it must subscribe, so I'm in.
So that is The Tourist. And you had Industry, so very short titles, very solid television series, though.
I cannot stress how happy I was with Industry. It really, there were some twists, there were some turns, it was really good.
That makes me happy. Shall we do our thing and decide what we're going to assign for each other for next week?
Like most weeks, I already rolled.
Okay.
And we are both sticking to HBO Max again this week.
All right.
You will be watching Our Flag Means Death.
Oh.
It's a comedy. I have heard of this. That's why I put it on the list with Taika Waititi and Darby.
Okay.
It's about pirating, so I think that should be interesting.
All right.
And I will be watching Minx, M-I-N-X.
What's that
also
about?
On HBO Max. No idea. I have to say, looking at our list, most of our HBO Max stuff has been relatively good.
Yeah, it's true. So you had Visitors, which was a dud, but you had Industry, which was great. I had The Staircase, which was pretty good. I had Made for Love. I don't know. Tourist.
Yeah, I'm looking also just in terms of our list of shows that we've been watching.
Yeah, that's true.
So, on average, we're looking at between a mooch and a subscribe.
Yep.
So that's pretty reasonable. Like it's quite close to that. I think that, in fact, in terms of our critical appeal, it's the highest rated platform that we've got.
I think so.
On shows that we've watched together. And on shows that we haven't watched together, it's also one of the more prolific shows on terms of our quote-unquote solo watches. Between the two of us, we've watched 10 different shows on HBO Max.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, rivaling Netflix. Netflix is 12, and the quality on average has been much higher. We're both hovering around a mooch, whereas on Netflix, we're both hovering around a skip.
Oh, yeah. We had Tokyo Vice, House of the Dragon, Westworld, Peacemaker, Winning Time. Whoa, that is an all-star lineup.
That is Murderer's Row, if you want to use baseball terms. That's very good.
I have to say, that kind of matches up with just what I've been noticing recently, which is when I'm looking at something, I'm queuing up HBO Max first. And I have to say, I'm looking at Netflix last.
Less and less now, right?
I
mean, Amazon Prime for me is always by default the last.
Yeah.
Except on Fridays, which is the first because I want to catch up on Rings of Power and on Star Trek. But other than that.
Yeah. I don't even check Amazon Prime, like you said, except when I'm watching Rings of Power. That's it. But honestly, like the last few times I've been flipping through Netflix, I really haven't found anything that's grabbing me. I mean, it's got the largest catalog, and that's always going to be its calling card. But in terms of
But I think that could also be its undoing. It's almost getting too cluttered. My home screen of recommendations, and also their algorithm for recommendations, is absolutely insane. Insane, like I'm getting recommendations for shows and for movies that I would never dream of wanting to watch.
Actually, it seems like Films and Stuff has a much better algorithm.
That's right. At least for the two of us.
That's true. Wow, I'm so happy that you loved Industry. That's
yeah. And I'm glad you like The Tourist, really, because the good thing about this also, by the way, for our listeners, is that it doesn't just give you, the listener, a choice or a chance to learn about these shows, but it also gives Ethan and myself an opportunity to see the shows or queue up shows for the coming weeks. Right?
Yeah. Okay, Pete, that is it for Stream and Skip this week. Everyone join us next week. I'm going to be watching Our Flag Means Death. Pete's got Minx. Much easier title.
And if you've got recommendations on shows that you want us to put onto our stream or skip, tweet us at F&S Podcast or email us at aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com, or why don't you leave us a comment on our videos down below?
I would love that. And it's always good to outsource the work. Let us do it for you. We'll come back with thumbs up or a thumbs down, stream or skip.
Any viewer-submitted recommendations or queries will get bumped up to the top of the list.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Pete, thank you for a great Stream or Skip episode. Listeners, we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.